Yo, people, welcome back to Wake Up Woodward. We appreciate you guys for kicking off the day with the Woo Crew. Shout out to our brother Flannel Sam, the fifth member of this starting five. Hey, the vet of the squad as well. He's on vacation. Hey, can't wait to see you back, brother. And go ahead and smash that like button. Shout out Mitten Maid, too. He said the like button finished off more haters than mine.
Hey, yo.
Mitten Maid.
He should be striking out like 7-8 a game.
Mitten Maid.
Yeah. Mitten Maid's on fire, by the way. Like, for whatever, his Mitten Maid and John Fisher, their circles, they show up in orange or red, and it just like pops out.
Yeah.
So it's like if Mitten Maid, if they ever put something in the chat, bro.
Yeah.
Bro. But hit that like button, guys. We'd appreciate it. Especially if you think the Pistons are going to win more than 14 games this year, this upcoming season. Hit the like button. More than 14. Please.
We hope.
Please.
We can only hope.
14. I know the Armani and Edwards, they got a hold of this. Paul Brennan tweeted out yesterday. The Celtics have had more playoff wins this playoffs than the Pistons did in the regular season.
Don't got to bring that up.
I know, I'm sorry.
Oh, my God.
Wait to now give your Woodward Pistons intro after I said that, so that doesn't get included in all of our hoopers.
Yeah.
So we'll start it right
now.
Yeah.
Hey, what up, though, people? Welcome back to Wake Up Woodward. We got to start breaking down some more of these top 10 prospects. We got the top 5 at 5 for the Detroit Pistons, as well as the next 5, because you never know what they could do. If they want to trade back, if they want to stay put, if they want to trade to get back into the first round,
I want to hear.
You never know what they could do. Obviously, I you guys already know where I stand. I want them to trade the number 5 pick. Not that I don't want them to take any chances in this draft, but trade back. There's a couple different players that, in my opinion, as it relates to the positions of need, there's some depth there. You're going to have your chance to get a 6'8", 6'9", 6'7", type of 3-and-D potential wing guy. You're going to have that. And one of the questions I'm going to ask Rod during our Woodward Pistons segment, because it could change the way that you look at this big board here, is should the Pistons, I'm not going to talk about it now, but should the Pistons put a point guard next to Cade Cunningham, a high-level point guard?
Like a Darius Garland?
Maybe like a Darius Garland. We saw the effect that a guy like Chris Paul has had now with multiple teams, with the Clippers, with the Rockets, as well as with the Phoenix Suns, who all have ball-dominant players. But we saw that having a high-intelligent kind of point guard next to a player like Cade, who actually his efficiency shooting-wise goes up when he's an off-ball guard, I wonder how much that could help or hurt the Pistons. And then it does change things as it relates to this draft board in terms of the types of players you look at. I know JB is one of the guys that is big on a Stephen Castle. So, it kind of changed things. Rob Dillingham. These dynamic players at the point guard slot, what you need with the Cade Cunningham playing maybe the 2 or the 3 as it relates to a traditional offense. So, yeah. But, yeah, look, with the big board, one player that I think is going to be taking a move up next week when I change this thing up a little bit is Donovan Clingan. I do. I really like what he brings to the table. You said it yesterday as well. By the minute, you're becoming more and more of a fan of Donovan Clingan. And I like what he brings to the table, but you got to figure out what you're doing with a Jalen Duren, because I don't know how they necessarily mesh unless Jalen Duren takes a step forward with his development as a 4 that can at least pick and pop from like the 16-foot range, like a McDice type of a guy. Oh. Yeah, you got to be able to space the floor somewhat. You got a guy in Donovan Clingan who is going to cause some havoc in the paint defensively and bring you some stability on the offensive side as it relates to pick and rolls, and as it relates to dives to the rim, as it relates to just overall getting you some rebounds and some putbacks. So, but the player we are talking about today is Matas Buzelis. This is a 6'10", 209-pound small forward. He played in the G League Ignite. All the promise that he had kind of before the G League Ignite surrounded the fact that he had some good defensive foundation, could shoot the cover off the ball. He was shooting 40% before he got to the G League from behind the arc. He could play make, he could handle, he could get into the mid-range. Matas Buzelis, he's a very, very, very versatile guy. I know that when people first heard his name and heard the connection to the Tellum family, a lot of people say, oh boy, is this just the Tellums looking to try and kind of look out for their own right now? I don't have a problem with having a super agent on this team within this organization and having kind of their perspective if it helps. Matas Buzelis does look like a player who could help. And where I'm most excited about him when we talk about like a lot of his strengths and weaknesses is what he can bring on the defensive side.
Okay.
But we got to talk first about his stats. 11.8 points per game, 5 rebounds per game, 1.7 assists, 1.3 blocks per game as well. 48% on 9.4 field goal attempts per game, and 22% though from behind the arc. Everything with his mechanics looks sound. But what winds up happening sometimes with players like that have this kind of high release point that he does, when you start to take those steps back, like from your high school age to the NBA game, when you get with the G League, those types of releases start to get flattened out a little bit, and it changes up what your mechanics are doing, or the type of effect that your shot is having. And so I don't know what has to happen or them to figure out, because this, to me, is the selling point. Can he be a reliable 35% plus three-point shooter? Is that something Matt Broder can do? Can he return to form? From everything that I'm reading and seeing from a plethora of different scouts, people I've been able to talk to, people who've done reviews, is that the mechanics are certain. You can tell, when he shoots it looks good. His throw shot looks good. His mid-range looks really good. But something's happening when he's taking that step back behind the three. I do believe that adding NBA strength, getting in with NBA trainers, can help, because sometimes it's just about the strength that you have the further away you get from the rim.
Especially being so tall. He's 6'10", right?
Yep.
Like, his mechanics look really good. I'm watching some of these highlights even. He's proportionate. Like, his body is proportionate. So it looks like he can fill out still at 6'10", 19 years old. And sometimes with tall guys, especially if I don't know what the history of his growth spurt is, like how recently he got tall, but your shot, especially the farther out you get, if you're not strong enough yet, if you're not learning to use your legs enough yet, that shot's flat the farther you get deep.
Yep.
You're up there, so you think you can just shoot it straight, but you still got to get some mark on it. Porzingis is a perfect example of a great three-point shooter, a guy who's just an absolute monster.
Yeah, hey, look, when we used to see a guy in Rasheed Wallace shoot, when he was on, it was when he was really getting that arc going, and sometimes when he was cold, he was shooting more line drive.
Yeah.
And so I'm hoping that if this is a guy that's on the Detroit Pistons radar who does present a lot to like, a whole lot to like, that they can figure out this three-point shooting with him. Just kind of going through it now as we get beyond that. His strengths: defense, rim protection, good help side defense as well. A guy who has an instinct, a feel for kind of setting players up, and then being able to still get the block or to be able to deter the shot. Where he's going to have to improve when we're talking about defense is kind of being the man-on-man defender. He has the skills. He has the footwork. He has the talent. He has to get a little bit more quick laterally. And he has to get a little bit more quick as well when guards or wings are trying to walk him down or get downhill on him. Sometimes the speed in the back pedal and his ability to be able to shuffle, it's not as proficient. So these are things when you're talking about Matt Buzelis that I would like to see him improve on defensively as he gets into the NBA game, especially facing NBA talent. I'm glad that he got a taste of NBA talent in the G League. Like, he had some pretty good highlights against Stanley Johnson, who we know is a guy who got to the league. He showed some promise. Things didn't work out because he had some really, really big personal issues kind of going on behind the scenes. Some very personal family issues that I do believe affected his mental, and he's talked about that. But Matt Buzelis put up some good tape against a guy like a Stanley Johnson, which shows, he's going to be able to deal with the physicality a little bit, but you want to see him get stronger, and you want to see him be able to better defend those types of players.
You talked about Dalton Connect yesterday. Why is he 4 and Dalton Connect's 5? Like, what are some of those?
Defense first.
It's defense?
Defense first. Yeah, because I look at the shooting of Dalton Connect, and I'm just like, man, I really covet that. But the versatility of Matt Buzelis, the only part of his game where I'm looking at him saying, yo, you really have to improve that, is a three-point shooting. Everywhere else throughout this game, I'm like, okay, he has potential there, he has potential there, he has potential there. And I know that potential is not everything, but when you're picking that high, the reason why these are the players that are generally mocked at the top of these drafts, Alexander Sarr, Zachary Risache, is because of the high-level potential they bring as these 6'9", 7-foot type guys that can potentially handle the ball, shoot the ball, play in the pick and roll, lead the transition, finish the transition, defend 1 through 5, defend well in the pick and roll. This is the type of player that he has the potential to be, and he checks all those boxes. It's just a matter of who he's going to be as a worker. This is my question for him, because I have questions for each one of these prospects. You knew that you were going from high school to the G League. What happens in between that you're not working all off season, and maybe he was. But what happened in that training or in those sessions that it just didn't translate to your next season? Because is this going to be something that follows him to the NBA? Where, hey, you know what? He's always showing potential, but maybe in the offseason he's not putting forth the work, or putting forth the work and it's just not producing the necessary gains to make the improvements that are needed and for him to be a productive player.
And I have a question for you, because I was about to bring up the three-point shooting. He has a 27% three-point percentage. Do you see that? You think that can improve? Because you've seen that the shooting is so lackluster on this team. It's hard to kind of sell me on let's bring in someone else who can't necessarily shoot.
You just helped me connect the potential dot. Now, we've heard the Pistons linked to Modest Buzelis, but who did the Pistons also just hire to the coaching staff? Fred Vincent from the Pelicans. And his claim to fame is
fixing Lonzo Ball.
Fixing Lonzo Ball and a couple other different people with their three-point shot. So I know that the Pistons, they already need a lot of help already with the current players that they have here, whether they wind up trading them or not. You want these players to be at their peak and to be able to have their best value. But with Buzelis, maybe there's a little bit of thinking there that if you do draft him, you got some people here that can both develop him strength-wise as well as get his mechanics right to the NBA game. Because maybe, you know what, whoever he was training with to get to the G League, maybe they didn't have the right strength and development plan. I know sometimes with players that are still growing, still developing, still have a chance at their growth spurt, sometimes you don't want to hit that maximum because it can stunt that. So you never know what he could be. He has a lot of handle. He has a lot of wiggle to his game. And I feel like whoever's working with him was probably trying to protect that. Give him his best ability to become, like, even if he can get to Alexander Sarr 7 foot and still handle the rock the way he is, to kind of have the mechanics shooting-wise the way he does. Yeah, because you see it. He can hit the mid-range. He shot like 47, 48% on mid-range attempts. He shot a good percentage from the free throw. It's just you step out further, and now he's coming up short. That, to me, shows that there's something wrong with the strength. So I think you get that NBA strength and development going with Modest Buzelis. I believe that will help him in his point of attack defense as the man-on-man defender. I do believe that this will also supercharge what I believe will be a help side and an off-ball defense that will help this team immediately. Immediately. You don't have to wait. And if you're talking about keeping a Jalen Duren, he's the type of player that if his shooting works out, that would be a really good pairing, especially defensively. But I want to know that he has that motor, that he's going to work and do what's necessary.
And he dropped that McDice reference on me.
Hey.
Like, I would love to see that type of offensive game from Jalen Duren. He's much more athletic. Tony McDice was athletic when he first came into the league, the first even 5-10 years of his career. And then, he got the Chris Webber effect. He was just kind of an old 6'10" power forward. But he still had that mid-range jump shot at the end of his career, even when he was with the Pistons. I would love to see that out of Duren. I didn't mean to cut you off, Justin. Did you have something to ask?
Yeah, I'm so curious because the other, 4 guys around him on this board all are, to some extent, a more proven shooter. And he's only 19, and so he's obviously going to grow into his body.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of where, like, my true concern is.
Hello,
but it's so hard for me to get on board to bring in another person who can kind of shoot. But I get the coaching thing, but yet again, how many times can you truly just straight up fix a player and get the shooting right?
Well, you know what? That's the question. The next question literally on the list, man. And it's not even like I prepped the questions with you, but those are the questions that naturally came to my mind as well. It's like, how long can you wait for him to figure this out? The reason why you do take a look is because that drop is so unprecedented from the 40% before to the 22%, and that they can see he has good shooting mechanics. He can shoot well everywhere else. That if you believe it's just strength, you take the kid. If that's all that it is. If it's truly a mechanics thing plus a mental thing, like we saw with oh my goodness, why am I drawing a blank? But the point guard, the point guard, the Philadelphia Simmons, Ben Simmons. How much of that was a mental thing with him plus the mechanics? It's like when you get down that type of a tunnel, it can get bad. If you think it's just strength and development, I think he's worth taking a chance on. But you're right. The other players around there, they have discernible skill sets as it relates to shooting that 3 ball pretty well. Him, I like his mix of being able to be an effective defender right now, help side and on ball, his ability to get in transition, his ability to, because you got to think about it, he's going to be handling the rock against other forwards, or you're going to have a smaller 3 that's going to defend him. So he could present some mismatches. It's just a matter of kind of the point that you raised and the question I have here. How long do you wait for his potential? Or are you sure that he can give you starter level traits right now? Maybe not all across the board, but defensively, can he provide you something? In the pick and roll, where I believe he's been really good, what can he provide you there? Those types of things that kind of seamlessly fit into any type of a motion offense. But to fit Monty Williams' offense, he does need to get a little bit quicker with his decision making, because Monty runs that 0.5 second offense. You got to be able to make up your decision to pass, cut, or shoot within 0.5 seconds.
And one more thing.
Oh, yeah.
It's just with how the current NBA is, you see guys even take stints in the G League, and then they come up like Cam Whitmore, and he averages around 14, 15 points per game and is a rather effective player for the Rockets. And I guess my expectation now when drafting in the first round is that if you are a good drafting team and you do your research, they should make an impact their rookie year. We shouldn't be looking at them developing all rookie year. So I guess where the question comes from is, can we expect, if we do take Matas Buzelis, I'm sorry if I butchered his name, will he make impact even if it's 3/4 of the way through the season and you can see that there is a level that is going up and you can see that how good he could possibly be for this team?
You know what? I'm going to answer that question right after the break. And we got the legend Rod Beard on the way as well.
We do.
Hold that question because that is a good question, man.
And before you give that read, shout out to the G League Ignite and Matas Buzelis, their Twitter, for those clips that we were playing while you were breaking them down. Awesome highlights. I got to give them credit.
He looks good, man.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm excited to talk to Rod about this draft process. There's been some good questions in the chat. I haven't asked you yet, but about this draft, are you worried that Trajan Langdon, we haven't heard from him yet?
Yeah.
I want to ask you guys.
I'm still holding out hope that we get our announcement this week about the press conference happening soon.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Yeah. Cool. We talking about all the shows coming on this network throughout the rest of the day.
I will. And you guys already know what. It starts off with Wake Up Woodward. And we appreciate you guys for sticking it out. Hey, look, we're on the bottom bar right now. 8 to 10 a.m. Monday through Friday with the Woo crew. That's Flannel Sam, KG, JB Smooth, that dude Justin, Broder, and myself, Kool-Aid. But after us, you guys got to stay tapped in with all of Woodward Sports, starting with Big D Energy from 11 to 1, 4-time Stanley Cup champion Darren McCarty alongside his co-host, the Golden Voice, Neil Rule. After that, Armani and Edwards with Maz from 2 to 4, the lovable radio legend Tom Mazway with University of Michigan legend and former NFL wide receiver Braylon Edwards, and Detroit Media King, Fox 2, Ryan Armani. After that, got to end the day with the Woodward Heavyweights from 5 to 7 p.m. That's the big fellas, man. Spin more racks, Speakeasy, baby. Alongside their elite booth, they got Nick Koloff, Chris Platty, holding things down to bring you the biggest interviews, the biggest breakdowns, and the biggest laughs. It is the Woodward Heavyweight. Most importantly, we appreciate you all and your support for making us your #1 digital sports network. Thank you. Welcome back to Wake Up Woodward. Thank you guys for kicking off the day with the Woo crew.
Let's go.
And we got the legend with us as well. We're going to switch things around.
Love this segment.
Got the Woodward Pistons segment so we can kind of finish out the draft talk. And I got to ask Rod this question about Chauncey Billups. I would love that.
You talk Chauncey anytime you guys want.
Yeah. But Cade Cunningham and needing a point guard that can have an effect on the team like the Chauncey Billups. As well as got to talk to him about Miles Bridges. It continues to be a name that percolates. But you know what?
I like that word.
We'll introduce Rod, and then I'll answer Justin's question. Then we'll get into Rod's.
Do I get on the drum roll today?
Yes, sir. Everybody should always get in on the drum roll. Oh, yeah. Let's welcome the legend in. Hey yo! Shout out and welcome to the legend, Detroit News, Rod Beard. What up, though, brother? Welcome to the show. Happy Juneteenth as well, brother.
Happy Wednesday to you.
Yes, sir.
How you doing, Rod?
I'm doing pretty good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. We
made it to Wednesday.
We did. We did. They don't call it hump day for no reason. We're almost there. I'm assuming we're maybe going to get a press conference announcement in the next week. Is that something from your experience that we should expect?
Hopefully.
Before the draft.
Question. Do we know for sure that Flannel Sam is not the GM?
We don't.
I cannot confirm nor deny.
We can't confirm.
That is the absolute holdup to this whole thing. We're waiting on Flannel Sam to get his demands out of the way, his contract demands.
Oh man!
Right.
And
I don't know
then
if you saw
the
he
press
went
conference
after
will be-
Jazz Chisholm on Twitter today. They were earlier
weekend,
this
yeah,
weekend.
on Friday.
They were going back and forth. Flannel Sam, that man stands on his business.
He was on vacation too, and Jazz Chisholm actually hit him back. And Flannel Sam, hey, stood on business, as Broder said. But you know what, Rod? I'm gonna get to Rod's thoughts real quick. That dude Justin had a little bit of a conversation that was kind of telling from our draft prospect breakdown. I wanted to spare you a lot of that conversation. But Justin, did you want to tee up your question again?
Yes, I will.
TJ, let's go.
Tell us everything you know about Mataz Buzelis.
Let's go.
All
No,
right.
don't.
First of all, Mr. Beard, pleasure to meet you. I've never been able to be in the chair on a Wednesday, so first of all, it's a pleasure. Second of all, my question for Kool-Aid was, with Buzelis being 19 years old and a lot of rookies coming in this modern day NBA and being able to have a first year impact, what if we were to draft him? When would that return kind of hit? Would he be able to come in right away and make an impact, or would it maybe be in the back end of the season, or are we looking at a multiple year project?
Hey, and you know what? That's why Rod has been kind of the champion of the TTP, the trade that pick, that campaign, because you're right. With all of these players, there's like high potential. Once you get beyond like the first 3 or 4 prospects, you're looking at college guys that you kind of know who they are. We don't know what their game is going to translate to, but with the potential thing, how many more guys can you kind of wait around for? Because right now the shooting is the biggest question mark. His defense, I do believe, will make an impact. He has good help side defense. He uses his length effectively to deter shots.
Great size.
He has good, kind of like a fast jump. So even if you get around him, he can still get up and be able to block the shot. So I like what he brings from that standpoint. He understands basketball rotation. Like, he understands how to rotate the ball, how to pass, hit the cutter, how to cut. Like, he just has that instinct. So I do believe he will contribute. But as it relates to contributing at a high impact, that's where I don't know. And if you do take somebody like a Buzelis, then you have to think about making sure you don't have too many of these, hey, well, we're just waiting for these guys to get going on the roster. So that's the thing. If you bring him in, are you also shipping out some other younger players if he's going to be somebody you have to wait for? So,
Well, I'll amend it a little bit. It's TATP. Trade all the picks. I don't.
That's what I'm talking about, right?
Nobody.
you don't even want the
I love
second
it.
rounder.
Right.
I love it.
It's like the amusement park. If you're not taller than this stick, you can't come on this. You can't play on this roster. And so if you're not 21, you can't play on this roster. You don't need any more 19 or 20-year-olds. If you unless you are ready to play tomorrow.
Yep.
If you're not a rookie who can step in this starting lineup tomorrow and play, no, trade them all. Trade all of the picks. You can trade them for a 2028 second round pick. Trade this year's second round for a 28 second round, because at least at that point you'll be ready to bring somebody on.
Right.
This number 5 pick, trade it for the best vet you can get. I don't want to pay anybody else.
Yep.
I don't want another young guy who's going to take more time. The best case scenario, if you do draft somebody, is you just leave them in the G League and let them develop there for a year or two and just leave it alone. There's nobody who's going to come in. Maybe Dalton Connect. Maybe.
Oh my
who can
God.
come in and provide something that you need immediately. That's the only way that I'm drafting somebody in this class, is if they can come in and play immediately.
Rod, you were preaching, brother. You were preaching. And it's heat. And that's, we talked about Dalton as well, being 23 years old. We asked, is there a man in this draft who can kind of step in right
Older
away?
than 19.
I believe Dalton
19,
Connect is that
absolutely.
guy. Yeah, I do. I believe Dalton Connect is that guy. I do like Donovan Clingan if there's another guy. But outside of that, you're right. With Amadas Buzelis, I like the potential. Do I want to wait around for it? I don't. I just don't. I believe you have the right opportunity to strike right now. We're hearing more and more players are becoming disgruntled. I believe I saw Evan Sittery. He posted this morning. I don't remember who had the original report, but that OG Anunoby now is going to test free agency.
Hey-o.
We know that this was a player that was also linked to the Pistons around the trade deadline, that they might have interest, because that's a position of need for them. They got a boatload of money. They can throw all the dollars. They can back up whatever Brinks truck he wants to the table and say, hey, listen, we need you here. We want you here. We like what you could be with the Cade Cunningham. And me personally, I would almost rather go out and pay all the money for that than to wait for potentially somebody to get it going within a year or two. The Pistons are at a point right now where you want to take advantage of the window in which Cade Cunningham is signing this big extension that's been rumored. Yeah, how long do you sit with him having this big extension? You say, well, let's just be patient for this whole next contract. You can't do that because you got how many other young players, since they did get a lot of young talent, that are going to be sitting around saying, well, we want to raise too. Even if they're not getting the max, they're going to want something that is kind of requisite and represents what the market is for those young players, getting paid on their potential ahead. And so you're putting yourself in a position where I believe you got to go out there and you got to strike, whether that's going out there and overpaying for somebody, whether that's going on there and getting a retread like a Jeremy Grant. If you're talking about those kind of versatile 6'9", 6'10" guys that can kind of give you that two-way ability, I'd rather go get somebody and pay for somebody that is proven in this NBA than to sit around and wait. And I think that's kind of what your point was getting at, Justin.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Rod, do you have any Rod's thoughts too? Kick this thing
up. It is and this thing was making the rounds on Twitter too. That as much as people talk about missing in the draft, and the Lakers could have had both Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum, but you never really hear that talked about. And it wasn't until I started seeing stuff on X this year, on Twitter this year. But as many as the draft misses, the Pistons missed this guy, everybody missed that guy. People don't talk about the Lakers, and the Lakers could have had both of those. And Philly traded out of getting Jason Tatum. So for the people that say the draft is everybody misses on the draft, or only a few teams miss on the draft, it's even the good teams like Philly and like the Lakers who miss out on these superstars. And that's the top of the draft. Those are top 3 picks that were just missed on. And those guys end up teaming up to be able to win an NBA championship. So the draft is really just, you've got to have the right people in place. And I think that's where Trajan Langdon has to make the right decision here on his GM. And if you look at the calendar, the draft is next week. Mm-hmm. If they don't have their GM in place and the rest of their scouting crew in place and really know what they're going to do, what does that say? I mean, I don't know how much he was able to do in New Orleans before he came here in terms of his draft prep, but who's making the draft decisions right now? Who's putting together a draft board today? Jeez, right. If they don't have a front office in place. So, I mean, that's saying something to me that maybe they're looking at trading the pick. It suggests maybe they're looking at trading the pick and trying to figure out what they're doing with this roster. And I know I said weeks ago that that they hadn't done anything. I thought that Troy might stay because of that. But now it's a week from today, and we're talking about there's no GM in place. We don't know what their draft strategy is going to be. We don't know if they have a draft board. That's saying a lot. That's still saying a lot.
That's a great observation by you. And kind of before I ask you this next question, kind of stand on the Trajan Langdon topic. I did hear via a source that this hiring of Trajan Langdon is supposed to really restore basketball operations and what's happening with the GM and everything else underneath with the roster construction and such and coaching directly to Tom Gores and allow Arntellum to focus more on the business development and the business side of things. So it kind of restores, I believe, the more of the traditional front office structure that we saw underneath the Joe Dumars era. But we want to see the rest of this front office, to your point, come together because the draft is next week. And you're right. That is a good observation. Maybe they are leaning towards trading this thing. Maybe that's what Trajan Langdon right now is at the very least scouring for. I would assume with this position, he would have even a better feel on what other teams maybe want over what prospects are doing, which I know a lot of times you're relying on your scouts to do that. So I don't know how much scouting he was doing in this last position, but I do know that he had some type of relationship with teams and what their needs were as well. So it'll be interesting to see. But I saw someone in the chat say it. Here we are. Terrell Lamar. How many times we got to go through this? Get some player that's supposed to fix things, but it never materialized. Man, and you know what? Yeah, that's a mouthful, and it kind of speaks to the strategy of this Detroit Pistons. I guess third rebuild attempt now, and as many attempts as many times.
Did the rebuild ever stop?
I don't know, man. It's an ongoing thing. It's helping to shape at least the way that I look at this and cover this as well. But we know that they need a couple different players. And we've been looking at this from a standpoint of Cade Cunningham running the show and putting more and more players around him. And I do believe that Cade Cunningham is still the straw that stirs that drink. But do you believe that there is a path, or do you believe that there is some good to maybe adding a high level or high potential point guard alongside Cade Cunningham and moving him off ball where he has more efficient offense? Or do you believe the ball needs to be in his hand and that usage rate still needs to be what kind of drives the Pistons?
I can see it. His usage rate can probably go down a little bit. He needs somebody else to be able to handle and create. I think he can shoot better, but if you're not bringing in a slew of three-point shooters, he can be a better shooter, but I don't know if you want him necessarily spotting up. And if he's not handling, who is? That's really generating offense, setting people up. I still think the best Cade Cunningham is something like a 27-7 or an 18-7-7 type player, with a lower usage rate than what he has. I think there are other things he can do to impact the game, but it's just, you tell me who you get. Are you getting a Trae Young? Does Trae Young come in and make this team better immediately? Possibly. You need a quick, good defender as the other guard to pair with Cade, who can create, who can do some other things.
Like Darius Garland.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I would love a Darius Garland.
If you is Cade a bigger version of Jalen Brunson? Not super quick.
That's a good comparison.
But he has kind of an old man game that he gets to his spots and he can finish around the rim. Is that an apt comparison?
I like it, actually.
Maybe. And if that's what he is, then yes, he's a point guard. You don't need to be the traditional fast and get to the rack and finish. You don't need to do all of those things. There's more than one type of point guard, and maybe he is a 6'6" Jalen Brunson. I would take that. So I think when people look at, is Cade a point guard? And I've talked to some people who have said maybe he's not a point guard, and maybe you need a different type of guard to put around him that Ivy isn't the answer there. And I can listen to that conversation, but is he a point guard? Yeah. Does he need more pieces around him? Yes. That's a definite yes.
Yep. And you know what? It does. It has major implications, because if you do believe that you need to put a point guard in a lineup with the Cade Cunningham, you know, how much more dynamic and how much more kind of elite of a step forward does Jaden Ivey have to take to warrant still being on that type of a roster? And that type of a lineup, you're probably looking to go a little bit bigger on the wing with a versatile 3-and-D guy, so that they can also be, if you're not having a star starter, whether you are, being the people that can also take Cade Cunningham's defensive usage rate down, as well as make sure that whatever point guard you have, since now your lineup presumably will get shorter in that case, that point guard also doesn't have too big of a defensive responsibility either. So it's I don't know, it's an interesting thing. You hear kind of these rumors. You hear some of the people that are going to be available. You've heard about the Pistons connection to the Hawks and Trae Young. You hear about the Darius Garland becoming available type stuff. And it just makes you think sometimes, especially when you look at someone like a Chris Paul, who's gone to several different teams now where they've had already ball-dominant guards or ball-dominant players on those squads, but he's been able to kind of supercharge those offenses. I think even specifically to the Phoenix Suns and Devin Booker, who his usage rate was really high, 27 to 30%. When they got Chris Paul in there and they instituted that 0.5-second offense, his usage rate went down like 22, 23%, but all his efficiency from his shooting standpoint went up, and he actually wound up attracting and getting more foul calls, which was an interesting thing to me. And so at first I thought it was mainly just the 0.5-second offense, but you add someone like a Chris Paul to the mix, and I think it just put him in an even better position to score, a better position to kind of see what the defense is doing, to read and react, and things of that nature, as well as stay more fresh. Did you have a point on that?
I'll say this too, and as we're looking at what free agents they can bring in, I think you start to look at a combination. I don't know if they can go and get one addition and make that everything. So if you're looking at a 4, can you trade for Jeremy Grant? Can you go get Tobias Harris? for a reasonable number is a Kelly Oubre or somebody of that, like a Buddy Hield. But it's the combination. You can't say there's one person. Is Jeremy Grant the answer by himself? No. Can you go get him? If you go get Gary Harris or Buddy Hield, let's say Buddy Hield and Tobias Harris, do you feel better about the roster at that point?
No. I mean, they're
NBA
players,
it's a combination of things. Right, but so I don't know if this free agency group has one player answer. It's a combination of tell me the 2 or 3 guys that you're spending your $60 million on, and I can feel better about it. I mean, I'm still very much Brandon Ingram or Zach LaVine as those are game changers. Yeah. Those are the top tier guys, and maybe even Jeremy Grant. If you tell me it's Jeremy Grant and Buddy Hield or Jeremy Grant and something like that, I feel okay. Well, you got some shooting, you got that big athletic 3-4 that you need. But I also think there's a vet presence to this that has to be part of the answer. That it's not just going to get one guy, and that's the point I want to make. I don't think that one guy that you pay $40 million to is the answer, and I don't think he's there anyway.
Yeah.
So that's the way that they have to look at free agency. Is it's a several layered thing that can help to make that happen.
Yeah, but I'm glad that you pointed out that distinction as well. It's going to take multiple really good signings as well as step forwards from the players that you choose to retain, like Cade Cunningham, and we assume someone in Fontecchio as well. And KJ, I know you had a question?
Yeah, I did. Morning, Ryan. Happy Juneteenth to you. And I totally agree. Yep, appreciate it. And I definitely agree. It's definitely going to take more than one player. But a lot of people have been screaming about Brandon Ingram, possibly coming here via trade. I don't know exactly how realistic that is. I would like to see it happen. But one name that I brought up a couple weeks back was Miles Bridges. And this is a guy who is a local kid. I feel like he fits what this offense can be. Like his skill set would fit perfectly next to Cade. And over the last 2 seasons that he's played, he's averaged about 21 points, 7 rebounds, and 3.5 assists. That's nothing to sneeze at. Of course, we know about the off the court issues and things of that nature, but I feel like he may be an option that you can add to this team without spending a lot of money, and you can still apply money to other areas of the team. What do you think about Miles Bridges as possibly one of the options to add to this team?
If you told me Troy Weaver was still the GM, I would say they would go definitely no, and I still might say definitely no. I think it's the off the court stuff is really big, and they try to pride themselves on being a very conscientious team, socially conscious team as well. The other side of that is they need talent, and sometimes you can just sort of forget about that. And if he's contrite and if he's shown that he's gotten past all of that stuff, then people may forget. But this might be the place because people know him as a Spartan. And there's some forgiving nature within that if there is a place that he could go and he could sort of water under the bridge, I think this could be it. It's a good point. But I just think from an ownership standpoint, they just may be a little hands off and just say, we're not touching that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm glad you asked that question as well, because that was a perspective that I wanted to be able to get from you, Rod, is just, how is something like this? How do you handle something like this? We know that pro sports is a league of not just second, but third, fourth, fifth chances. And we've seen it. We've seen it with players here in the past. We even took on a guy, we had, bombastic and guys like Rasheed Wallace even, who I don't want to compare necessarily the two because he didn't have like the off-court stuff. But just in terms of guys that get those second chances, get those opportunities to have their images kind of revitalized, we found that to happen in this league. And so, I don't know. It's a hard case, especially with kind of what's going on and what has happened within the Pistons organization and what they're trying to stand for and the type of tolerance that they are or aren't trying to have for that. It just leads me to believe that they would steer away from that. But I told KG and these guys yesterday, from a talent standpoint, Miles Bridges would instantly help this Detroit Pistons team.
And he's cheaper.
He is cheaper. It's not just what one player would do. but you get him and a couple other players in here along that same talent level or better, you're looking at an improved Detroit Pistons team.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to remember, and I think it was weird when they made the blatant trade. The players they got was Willie Reed, and he had a domestic violence charge right around that same time, and I think they released him like immediately. He was on the roster. I think he had that charge, and then they just like, no. So you can look at past history and say, how do they handle these other incidents when players have a domestic violence case? And that can give you some indication of which way they might go. And I remember that there were two other pieces in that Blake Griffin trade. I think Willie Reed was one of them. He had a case, a charge, and they just like immediately released him right after that. And that's, I think I remember it that way.
Okay. But no, hey, Rod, I appreciate you for the Pistons talk as always, man, getting the Rod's thoughts off. I thought that we had some really, really good, cool and good dialogue. You got time for a second segment?
Yeah, let's go.
Let's rock. Hey, you know what? Hey, so let me tell the people first about something awesome, and then we'll get back to the legend, who is the most awesome, that is Rod Beard. But awesome is when a guy can be a guy and get an amazing haircut. That's Lady Jane's Haircuts for Men. Just stop in, sit back, and relax, and let one of Lady Jane's talented hairstylists make you look and feel great. Every now and then,